Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Recording this one well in advance. Actually recording this one on December the 9th, a couple of hours before the live stream, just because out of the three year-end videos, the goals video is usually the simplest one. It's basically me just going through a list. So instead of me doing the little thing where I'm sitting there talking to you, reading off the list, and then trying to do a little graphic thing on the side, I figured I would make it a little bit simpler. We're going with the PowerPoint slideshow. I know, pretty exciting stuff. But either way, it gives a quick visual representation. Now, for the uninitiated, really what these videos are for mostly for my record keeping, honestly. Occasionally, some people hopefully get some value out of them. Every year for the last 3 years, so this will be the third year that I've done it on the YouTube channel, I'll go through basically what my collecting goals are for the upcoming year. But usually I'll also talk about the year before and talk about which ones, which goals I had, recap them, and then also talk about how I did. Did I accomplish all the goals? Did I miss on a couple? Some years I hit on all of them, or most of them, and some years I miss on most of them. This one was a bit of a mixed bag. I think I missed on most of them more often than not. I'll go through the list here with you. But then also I'm going to talk about the 2023 goals that I have, so I make some adjustments, figure out, and also kind of talk through why certain things happen the way they did. Sometimes life gets in the way, or you have a plan and then something else comes up, and that's perfectly fine. So that's where each year I kind of recalibrate and adjust, and it lets me kind of keep track of things over time. It also gives me something to focus on so that I'm not just running around buying all kinds of random crap, even though I'll still buy some random crap. And if you've seen the pickup videos on this channel, sometimes it is buying random crap. Now to start off, then let's go through the goals from 2022 that would have been in last year's video. So let's scroll forward here. So I'll quickly read through a couple of these. You can see there I've got mostly red with a couple of greens here at the end. So the first one was the 2018 Topps Chrome UFC autograph set. I've done a showcase on this one. It's a 33 card checklist, and I had 31. I got to 31 of 33, which means I'm missing now the Sean O'Malley and the Mark Hunt. So that's still the case. Now, I will say that the Sean O'Malley is just a matter of sitting down and picking a time when I'm going to go on eBay and overpay. It's not a cheap card, so it's one of those things where it's just a matter of paying for the card. The Mark Hunt, though, is a little bit interesting because honestly, I just haven't seen it. I've been trying to search for it for quite a long time. I've got eBay save searches and everything, and the Mark Hunt, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to show up. So I'm wondering now if it's a super short print or if it's a case where it's in the checklist but it hasn't been issued. So what I'm going to do probably at the beginning of the year is do a little bit of research and digging and find out, because if I can't find any evidence that the Mark Hunt actually exists, the regular version of it, then I'm going to kind of mark it off the checklist myself, get the Sean O'Malley, and call it done at 32. But that's basically the hang up with that one. There's one that I just can't seem to find, and the other one's just kind of expensive. But at some point in this year, I will get that Sean O'Malley, and either the set's done at 32 or there's some questions that I have to figure out and get the answer to for the Mark Hunt one. Next one is actually an easy set, but it's just a matter of I ran out of time for the year. The 1996 Topps Mystery Finest Refractor. I'm basically at 5 missing from the complete checklist. These are not crazy. They're not crazy expensive either. Honestly, I think all of them are in COMC right now, so probably maybe by the end of the year or early in the year, I'll finish that off. So that'll be off the checklist. That'll be a plus by the end of the year. Next up here is a bit of a longer term project just because I'm chipping away at it. It's the 1996 Finest Gold Refractor. So that's the baseball refractors. I've got the Griffey, I've got the Bonds, I've got a variety of the different stars. My goal was to get the 30 or 47 cards before the year end. I ended up at 27. So I ended up pretty close. I actually picked up one, if not this past week, then the week before in the PWCC auction. So I am chipping away at it slowly. My goal for next year will be to roll that over, and I'll talk about more of that in the slide when we get to that one. But I got pretty close, but it's still X, basically, since I felt just a little bit short of that one. The next one here is actually kind of interesting. I had intended as something where I'm working on vintage side of things. I usually like to have one vintage baseball set or one or two, and then a vintage hockey set. I did the 1960 Parkhurst set, last year where I completed it, but the goal for this year was actually to do the 54, 55 Topps. I have the Gordie Howe, and that was my starting point, and I was going to start working on, getting close to the halfway point of it. As you can see, I actually didn't end up getting anywhere past the Gordie Howe. I had a couple of opportunities to buy a few, but I just kind of get distracted by other projects. And again, when I talk about the 2023 goals, that's going to carry over into that as well. And I'll talk more about that after. But that's definitely a fail because, 1 in 25 is a big gap between those two. Next was 54 Bowman Baseball. After years of chipping away at that one, the goal was to finish the set. The set is completed. I've done a showcase on the channel, so that one's a green. It's a check mark, and we can move on from there. The next one was 63 Fleer Baseball. I wanted to get to about 30 of 67 cards that are in the set. I got to 37 of 67. I did some heavy damage at the Toronto Expo, both versions of the Expo in the spring and in the fall. And I was able to add a bunch of that were able to push me ahead into 37 of 67. And we'll definitely be carrying that over into next year. And I'll talk about what my goals are for that one. Now, on the other side of the equation, those are goals for different sets that I was working on for the year. Then we've also got the personal collection. So the Mike Modano collection is basically the main PC that I have for player collecting, even though I collect a few different players. This is the main one that I focus on. So last year, I really broke it down into a couple different pieces. I had one section that was 1990, 91, so it was rookie year until 94, 95. I've got a checklist of all the cards that fall under that, and my goal was to get to 192 cards in that checklist. I think the total is 202. So really, I'm down to the very end of that group. So the goal was to basically get the checklist down to 10 cards, and I ended up at 190, just shy of that. The problem that I have right now with that checklist, in all honesty, is that some of those cards are, I guess rare would be one way to put it, but mostly obscure. Some of the ones on the checklist are, if you're familiar with them, in the early 90s, Upper Deck had some issues where manufacturing wise, they would have these weird hologram variations. Where I think they had one where they used the baseball hologram on the hockey product, and there was like a Looney Tunes one, and some weird ones that it's possible that I can get my hands on them, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to seek them out. Unless somebody knows what they have, it's one of those things that it's not going to come up all the time. And we're down to that kind of thing. It's more obscure stuff, weird stuff. Possible, but it's one of those things where obviously I felt just short of that. I was able to add some cards to that section of the checklist and really bring it down, but now it tends to be really weird and obscure stuff that I'm left with. Same kind of thing with 96, it was 96, 97, a typo there, to 99, 2000. So the latter portion of the 90s, I really put an emphasis last year on really knocking down those checklists to get down to the very end here. And I wanted to get under 85 cards left on that entire checklist for the last 5 years of the 90s. One of my favorite periods of hockey cards in general and collecting in general. And I was able to get it down to 83 cards. So I was able to cross that line. I've got some cards that are sitting at COMC that I'll be picking up probably in the new year, but I did get under that line. So that is a check on that one. And that list is only going to get tougher as we go along because a lot of the stuff that's left is like the MVP superscripts from the late 90s. And there's an SPX finite card that is out of 25 that I'm missing on that one, a parallel. And there's some inserts I've got 96, 97 Run for the Cup. That's a tough one that has dried up quite a bit in terms of availability. I've got a bunch of tough ones, but we're getting down to increasingly tougher and tougher checklist. It's very similar to what happened with the first line. It just gets tougher as we go along, so I don't expect those numbers to drop very fast anymore because now we're down to under 100 cards for the first decade of his career and almost 1,000 cards. So we're really getting down to the nitty gritty there when you've got about 90% of the checklist. Next, overall, my original plan, I was thinking I'd be grabbing big bunches of Medano cards, especially for the current products. The current products, they keep putting them in a bunch of different products, so it's usually easy to grab a bunches of cards. It didn't end up working out that way. I had a plan for 2,600 plus unique, which would have been possible if I had just gone on several buying sprees. But throughout the course of this year, I had several lulls where I just didn't pick up too many things. So I ended up with 2,423 cards as of right now. I did get a card in today, which is the picture that I'm showing as part of this slide, which is great. And it'll also feed into the next goal as well. But top to bottom, I really wasn't able to add much to that to get it past that point. Although I'm pretty sure we'll add some more in the following year, but I don't think it's going to be quite as fast as I originally intended, given that I don't just want to run out and buy a bunch of current cards just to start compiling numbers, basically. Next, I wanted to have 250 plus certified autographs. I ended up at 263, so we passed that, including the one over on the right there from the picture. So we added that to the total. Since that came in today, I added it into the slide. So successful. So basically for the Medano PC, it's 2 yes and 2 no. So I was pretty close, 50% on this part of it. So that said, let's go into 2023. What are the 2023 goals? And for this one, we've got a lovely picture of a 1953 Bowman Color early win, which is a bit of a precursor to what we're going to talk about when we get to the sets. So let's talk about that. So this is the goals for sets for 2023. First of all, 2018 Topps Chrome UFC autographs, we're carrying that over. So the goal is to finish the set. The current is 31 of 33, as I mentioned earlier, but I put the little question mark there because of what I said earlier. I don't know if the checklist should be 32 instead. So it's one of those things where my plan is to get to Sean O'Malley. We're going to get to 32, and then I'm going to make a judgment call. Because if that Mark Hunt is just nowhere to be seen, I'm going to call the set done. So, to be determined here. It's either a 33 card checklist or 32. Next up, 96 Mystery Finest Refractors. Finishing the set shouldn't be a problem. 5 cards left. We should be able to get our hands on that. That'll be probably one of the first ones that I check off in the new year. 96, 97 Finest Gold Refractors Baseball. We've got 27 to 47. Sorry, 27 to 37, 47. The goal is to get 10 more. Now, the question is, why am I not being a little bit more aggressive on this? Well, the next 2 lines are going to kind of cover that. I do want to chip away at this set, but it's one of those things where I'm basically picking up one at a time. A bulk lot of these is not too common, although occasionally there are set breaks where somebody breaks up a set of these, and in which case maybe I could pick up a couple at a time, but I'm assuming that I'm going to be picking up 1 or 2 at a time, and that means by the end of the year I'd like to be approaching, be under 10 cards left for the sets or around 10 cards, and that should be good enough for me, and then maybe we'll do it in 2024 to finish it off. Next year, 1963 Fleer Baseball. I've been working on this set. I've actually been doing it as part of a set registry, which I don't specify here, but I'm working on it as part of a set registry. So currently I have 37 of the 67 cards. I need 30 more to finish the set. So my goal for 2023 is to finish this set. So that's the reason why I'm being a lot more aggressive in this portion of it as opposed to the one directly above it. So that I want to kind of put some more emphasis on that. I think that's very doable. 30 cards over the course of 12 months. I'm being a little bit picky, not super picky, but I'm trying to get some nice cards to include as part of that collection. So if I do that, I should be able to grab a couple a month to basically get me towards that goal. And if I can pick up a few more lots, or if I am able to go to the Toronto Expo and grab another lot, a group lot of 5 or 6 of them at a time, it should help me get closer and closer to finishing this set off. So last one here for the sets is also real aggressive. So if you notice the aggression here, the focus I think for this upcoming year is going to be mostly on those vintage sets. I really want to start chipping away at them because I've got some other projects I want to work on. So the sooner I'm successful in getting those down to smaller checklists, it's going to help me with some of the other projects I want to work on. So for 53 Bowman Color, I've got 47 of the 160 cards, so I'm a little past 25% right now. I want to get to 90 of 160. Ideally, I'd like to be over 100 cards, but 90 is a number that basically allows me to average about 4 cards a month. Again, I'm being a little bit more aggressive with that, but I want to really dwindle down that checklist. And I've got a lot of the main stars already, so it's one of those things where I can probably get some group lots together, and that will probably help quite a bit. So I'm going to really put my focus on those last 2 bullet points there to try to chip away at those checklists and get myself closer to moving on to the next big project that I want to work on into 2024. All right, so for the Mike Modano PC, and I'm using this image because that was a recent pickup, so there's a little spoiler of my favorite pickups of the year. You can guess this is probably going to be one of them. But for the Modano PC, I actually streamlined this list down. So I actually had 4 items last time. This time around, I'm only putting 3 items because, again, I want to put the focus into certain specific areas. Hopefully help me make some progress on those. And then we'll kind of play by ear in some of the rest of it. Because I do have other things I'm going to work on in other projects, but I really want the emphasis to be on these. So for that 95, 96 to 99, 2000 section, the latter portion of the 90s that I talked about in the earlier slide, I have 83 cards left on that checklist. And as I said, as we go along, it actually gets tougher because it's more and more tough cards and more limited cards and stuff that just doesn't come up all the time. I want to get it under 78. I'd like to get it to 77, 78. Really, 5 or 6 cards in a year seems really, really conservative. But when you bear in mind that a lot of the stuff that's left on that checklist is stuff like that card on the right that, honestly, I hadn't seen into over 20 years. This card is from 1999, 2000. It falls under that section here. Well, I got to mark that one off. But it's getting tougher. It's not getting easier, and a lot of that stuff is really becoming a bit of a bear to find. So I'm not assuming I'm going to be able to find a big group lot of a lot of the ones that I need in that checklist. Next up here, since I am putting more of an emphasis on some of those tougher cards, I want to conserve a little bit of my funds for this part of the collection to not necessarily go and try to grab big group lots of like common and post playing day stuff. So instead of 2,600 from last time, I want to get over 2,500 unique Modano cards this upcoming year, which is a nice round number that I like. So currently I'm at 24, 23. So, under 80 cards that I'm shooting for. Obviously, if I can find a lot or something, that'd be great, but I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to focus too much on the post-playing days. I really want to start chipping away at those checklists for the playing days. So it's going to be more of a focused search to try to really knock those down. Last one here is the certified autographs. My personal favorite kind of subcategory. I love the certified autographs more than even the memorabilia cards, although the patches are nice. Obviously, stuff like the cup and all that. I'm always having an eye out for that kind of thing. But the certified autographs I like. And then right now I'm sitting at 263 of them, and I want to get past 280 different. I'd like to, as a bit of a stretch goal, if I could get to 300 plus by the end of that year, I would love it because I just enjoy picking up and accumulating those certified autos when I can. But that is the goals for 2022 reviewed and the goals for 2023 coming up. A lot more streamlined. If you notice in that set section, I actually removed the 54-55 top set entirely because I wanted to put more of the focus on those other sets that I really want to make some progress on. I may come back to that project later on because I would love to do it, but it's one of those things where I really want to focus in and key in on finishing that 63 Fleer set. I really want to key in and focus on making a dent in the 53 Bowman Color set and on some of these player collections that I'm working on. So it's one of those things where I want to put more of the focus on those things and make sure I don't have my head going in a bunch of different directions distracting me. So that's it. That's another year in the books as far as the old goals and then the new goals. So I always jot them all down and have them with me throughout the year to kind of keep my focus on it. So for those of you who have seen this before, you know kind of the drill in the way that I structure these things. So here's my question. Do any of you do anything like this? Not necessarily in this specific way or in this format, but do you have any goals that you work on at the end of the year or the beginning of the year? Do you kind of keep track of any of this stuff? Or do you just kind of work on sets or projects as you come along and then, whatever happens, happens? I'm just kind of curious different people's approaches to it and if they even bother keeping track of stuff like this. I obviously like to keep track of a lot of these things, But that's just kind of my style. And that's the way that it kind of keeps me engaged and focused on certain things so that I don't get too distracted. Because it's very easy to see a bunch of different interesting things and run off in a bunch of directions and just end up buying a bunch of cards that are really cool, but don't necessarily fit into anything. And those of you who watch the pickups, you're going to see that you're still going to see stuff that falls outside of this. I've got to have my, fun, shiny favres and a variety of other different player collections that I'm working on. I've got my wrestling cards that I pick up, but I don't have a set specific goal for those. It's one of those things where I'll pick up stuff that interests me, but these ones are a lot more refined and a lot more directed at some specific things that I'm trying to do. So that's the reason why I like having lists like this to kind of keep me on task a little bit. Anyway, as I said, curious if any of you do anything similar on your own way or however you keep track of it. Otherwise, more videos coming up on the channel, live streams coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Fridays. And we're going to keep that going into 2023. I can pretty much tell you that right now. In addition to that, also, though, we'll be working on some other videos and content in the new year and whatever else the hobby brings up, because I don't mind making videos and topics. Other than that, that's it for me. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. We'll catch you in the next one.